Finally, we reached the top of Gravity Peak and made camp for the night. As we stared up at Gravity Falls' beautiful and strange constellation patterns, we found ourselves discussing our future as if we were back in our old college dorm. F said that once our project was complete and he moved back to California, his dream was to become an independent inventor, patenting robotics that would improve people's lives. Plus, after growing up dirt poor in the sea, he fantasized about making enough to afford a nice place with a screen door that wasn't broken. I could relate to his ambition. I discussed my dreams of proving my theory. I could finally leave Gravity Falls, return home to the East Coast, and publish my findings to the world. I'd be the toast of the scientific community, rubbing elbows with presidents and prize winners, debating politics with Reagan, and discussing turtleneck fashion tips with Carl Sagan. Imagine the look on the dean of West Coast Tech's face when he saw that the student he refused was now the next Einstein. Imagine how proud my family and hometown would be. The freak would return a hero. You're the only viewer. That's okay. That's fine. Favorite constellations: Orion, Ursa Major, William. William's looking familiar. F seemed puzzled by the scope of my plans. I had already discovered so many amazing things and recorded them in the journals. Was this grand theory even necessary? Why not publish now, settle down, maybe meet someone and start a family? I laughed at the thought. Romance was far more baffling to me than the greatest mysteries of the universe. And more importantly, once Gravity Falls is revealed to the world, it would surely create a weirdness rush of scientists flocking to the town. If I don't discover the theory first, surely one of them will, and my name would be lost to the history books. It hasn't been an easy path, but I prefer the road less traveled anyway. Although I confided in F that I was grateful to be traveling with a friend. Beans! F's favorite. Eats them even when we're not camping. Always feels like the face is staring at me. Reminds me of camping with my brother. I wonder what he's up to. I awoke the next morning to the sound of screaming, which in Gravity Falls is more common than you might think. Apparently F had been up early shaving. The speed of his facial hair growth is a mystery of its own. When he spied something menacing standing behind his reflection in the creek. But when he turned around to smack the intruder with his banjo, it was gone. Strange things are always found in this hidden pass. As I surveyed the camp, I felt a hand tapping on my neck. I looked around in a panic, but found there was nothing there. An eerie gust of wind carried my gaze to an ancient, moss-covered wooden sign on which was carved a strange poem. In the corner of your eye, a man appears to lean, but when you turn to meet his stare, he's nowhere to be seen. Hide your lumber, clutch your axe, and turn your lanterns up. Best to watch your back, my friends. The hide-behind's about. I've heard enough lumberjack lore to know we were in the presence of the hide-behind. Legends describe a being with an impossible ability to hide before it is seen. But what is he? A ghost? A living shadow? Or just a malnourished peeping Tom with the fear of eye contact? Is this peripheral phantom watching me right now? Footprints. Never been seen. A strange howl echoed through the air as F and I packed up quickly and quietly and walked backwards out of camp. I told F to keep his shaving mirror handy, to look back just in case. I may return to this camp one day, once the hairs on my neck finally stand down. I am a doctor. Oh, got it. Hold on. That's better. What a relief to be out of the forest. The wild spinning of my compass told me we had nearly reached our destination, but I saw something very strange when we got there. Sleepily munching on the grass was a herd of cattle with the strangest spot patterns I'd ever seen. Cow circles. Is this a code? A language? Or some intergalactic teenager's idea of a prank? Circles, spirals, and designs of otherworldly mathematical precision coat them from horns to hooves. Eyes, unusually dilated, as if from staring at an intensely bright light. Does this mean what I think it means? The bucket of milk nearby seemed to emit a low hum. I told F not to drink it. He did anyway. Can't take the farm out of him. Staring directly at them makes me oddly dizzy. One chewed on my book. From a distance, it appeared that the patterns on these beasts were in some way linked. Could arranging the cows together reveal a giant message? Unfortunately, such investigations would have to wait, as we had arrived at last at our destination. Spit. Crash Site Omega. The site looked exactly the same as I had left it 2 years ago, referenced in Journal 2, with the ladder I had constructed leading down through the indefinite exhaust port. F was so excited when he saw it that he spit out the tainted milk. We descended into the abyss together. What a pleasure it was to share one of my greatest secret discoveries with another brilliant mind. As we journeyed through wreckage, I could see F filled with the very same awe I felt when I first came upon the site. I will say that I am cautious to record too much about the CSO here. If the wrong people discovered what is buried, it would be catastrophic. The last thing I want is a close encounter with the government. Fortunately, with F's mechanical know-how and my keen intuition, we were able at last to locate and extract the hyperdrive. 11 inches across. We recovered the drive and stored it snugly in F's backpack. What a good feeling it was to complete our mission. Very soon, both our scientific ambitions will be fulfilled. My muse was right. Sometimes all genius needs is a little help from a friend. A new path. Emboldened by our success, we tromped down a shortcut through the mountain, talking excitedly about the future. Winding through cliffs, we passed the skeleton of a massive species of pterosaur, bigger than anything known to science. Stranger still, the bones appeared to not be fossilized. F cowered at the sight of its massive jaws. I'm continuously surprised by his childlike fear in the face of some of the anomalies of this town. We were about to continue down the mountain when I saw one of the most rare beasts in Gravity Falls. And, just my luck, it was fast asleep in our path. F begged for me not to disturb it, but I know from experience that they are incredibly heavy sleepers. In theory, even a novice could capture and cage one without it ever awakening from its hibernation. I couldn't miss the chance to creep up and do a detailed sketch of the Gremloblin. Oh, sorry. Fun guy detail. Half gremlin, half goblin. Proof that some creatures should not interbreed.
See Leprechaun and the Weremaid, Journal 1. It's hard to look at it, and even harder to say its name 3 times fast. The creature is even uglier up close than I had expected. As I was sketching, my assistant became increasingly agitated. He cowered behind a tree and pleaded for me to move along. Just as I was telling him not to worry, the hyperdrive, which I had thought was inactive, emitted an ear-piercing alarm from F's backpack. Perhaps the altitude-based change in air pressure had kick-started it. The gremlin awoke with a start and grabbed my assistant with his enormous claws and stared intensely into F's eyes. Claws emit neurotoxins. Wing structure, phase 2. I was impressed to get such an amazing view of the elusive creature, but now was not the time for sketching. Hoping to startle the beast, I hurled my canteen at him, splashing him with water. A word of advice to future readers. When fighting a gremlin, use water. Only as a last resort, as water will make it much, much scarier. He mutated before my eyes, and with a mighty heave of his wings, took flight down the mountain with my assistant in his grasp. I sprinted down the cliffside after the creature, tearing my coat and scraping myself bloody, watching helplessly as the monster flew further into the distance. It was clear that I was going to lose F forever if I didn't think fast, so I whipped out my magnet gun, pointed it at the hyperdrive still cradled in F's arms, and, with a magnetic rush, was pulled 50 feet up through the air onto the gremlin's back. One hard blow to the back of the head with my gun, and he was out cold. He careened down through the air, taking me and F with him. Unnecessary gamble. We crashed through a barn roof, and were fortunate enough to land in a soft, cushioning hayloft. The gremlin was knocked out, and the startled horses began to calm down. The hyperdrive was thankfully in an empty trough, safe and sound. F, however, was far worse for wear. He seemed utterly panicked by what he had experienced, and was in such a babbling state of terror that he didn't even seem to notice that his arm was broken and pierced in several places with the gremlin's venomous quills. I immediately took him home for treatment. Quills. Need a drink. Hold on. Here we go. Great news! The hyperdrive works. Clearly, the civilized beings who created this technology were far better engineers than they were pilots. Although I can't help but wonder, who is truly the more advanced species? The one who works 1,000 years to invent technology, or the one who simply waits for the other to crash and then collects it for free? Unfortunately, a hyperdrive requires highly radioactive materials to stay powered, but I was able to rid a government waste dump nearby with ample materials. Frankly, it's worrisome that these barrels would be buried so close to town. I'm doing a public service by removing them. Despite our fortune, I've become worried about my assistant. I was able to treat his physical wounds. Fear there are mental wounds, not as easily remedied. For the past several nights, he has been unable to sleep, apparently still haunted by the gremlin's gaze. More alarming is his Cubik's Cube. It has sat scrambled, unfixed, on his desk for days. I myself have survived many monster attacks without trauma, but perhaps F is more sensitive than I realized. I spent the afternoon teaching some of my meditation technique and a heart rate slowing exercise I had learned to help control fear. F seemed skeptical, but I reminded him that we are scientists, and that by using our creativity we can solve any problem we face, even our fears. My assistant took my advice in the worst possible way. Today, he ran up to me, beaming, and saying he had spent all night working on a solution to his anxiety. He produced this unsettling device. Apparently, it can target and destroy bad memories, including his frightening encounter with the Grim Goblin. Memory gun. What if it gets in the wrong hands? Blast shield. Not only large enough, not nearly large enough. What if the blowback affected the gun? Bulb. Blasts a wave of radiation strong enough to disassemble the neurological pathways that contain memory. Is it permanent? Memory canister. Holds a spool of electric tape that is supposed to copy and store the memory for later use. Output jack. To use on a wider scale. The potential applications are alarming. Specify. Allows the user to type out and target specific memories. I shudder to think what a typo could produce. I didn't hesitate to let F know that despite his good intentions, this device was far too dangerous to keep. The temptation for misuse was catastrophic. For all I know, he's already used the ray on me before. He was crestfallen by my advice, but after some discussion, he came to see the wisdom in it. He said that he didn't want to risk forgetting his wife and son. I ordered him to destroy the gun, and he did. At least I think he did. I can't quite remember. Oh, God. The carnival. In order to get F's mind off his recent trauma, I decided it was time to take a break from our project. Fortunately, I read in the newspaper that Mama Miss Fortune's traveling carnival and freak show was in town for the day. Although I loathe nickel-grubbing circuses and sideshows, I was swindled enough as a kid on the boardwalk. I learned that every so often there's something real mixed in with the fakes that is worth studying. This means new discoveries for me, and a day of relaxation for my poor, beleaguered assistant. Sure enough, he was ecstatic at the prospect of watching pig races and eating kettle corn, and very soon we were on our way. He's already begun playing with his Kubik's Cube again. This will do him some good. Fake. My excitement turned out to be short-lived. The first beast I encountered at the fair was literally a chicken duct taped to a silverback gorilla. A plaque called it the Gore chicken. No, Gorican. I can read. There was no explanation given for the wizard hat it wore. It merely a sign reading "Cash Only." Shockingly, the townsfolk seemed delighted, and I could barely get past the throng to the front of the line. This town has the most gullible people on earth. Someone with no ethics could make money hand over fist in Gravity Falls. Crab it. My nose is itchy. The palm reader. F was clearly having the time of his life. He had just bet on a peg race and won first prize by using advanced probability calculations. I noticed the palm reader and was galled to see how long the line was to this obvious charade. The dim intellect of the citizens of this town continues to astound. I pondered how gratifying it would be to publicly expose such a charlatan, and realized that I had a rare opportunity. Surely this palm reader had never seen a six-fingered hand like mine. She'd likely be so stumped by my extra digit that I could expose her for the fraud she was. I walked into a darkly lit tent smelling of incense. A strange, gnarled crone waited at a rickety table. She seemed to have a collection of severed hands in a cage, but it may have just been the light playing tricks on me. When I sat down, she quickly grabbed my hand and said, "What took you so long, Sixer?" I felt a chill run down my back. How she knew my childhood nickname was beyond me. Before I could muster a response, she opened a pack of tarot cards and lined them up on the table. When she saw the results, she shrieked and looked at me with a great and pained sympathy. Someone very close to you is deceiving you. You have chosen the wrong allies. You will live 2 lives, and both of them too short, unless you change now. She handed me a strange blue ring. When this is blue, you may pull through. When this is black, you can't turn back. I told the psychic to skip the rhymes and get to the palm reading. I already felt uncomfortable enough and was looking forward to getting out of there. With a sigh, she got to it. Short relationships. She said, no one wants to hold a rose with too many thorns. I never understood poetry, to be honest. Trigger finger. She said I need to think before I shoot. Long wisdom. She claimed I was too smart for my own good. Personally, I took this as a compliment. A crossroads. Apparently, I will have to make a choice very soon. And if I choose the wrong one, I will never be myself again. Perfectly sane life advice from a lady who lives in a traveling wagon full of severed hands. A broken lifeline. She said that my lifeline seemed to end abruptly at the start and start again sometime later. Clearly, this is an inexact science. She also said that my extra finger did indeed make me special, and that if I wasn't doing anything later, maybe we could get some drinks. She was flirting with me. That clinched it. I grabbed my things and got the heck out of there. Clearly, breathing incense for 50 years has damaged her brain. The carny. As I hurried from the tent, I found my assistant cheerfully fixing some gears on a broken Ferris wheel and chatting with an odd young carny. Sorry, I'm still a little sick. Although this seedy character was little more than a teenager, his bald head was covered with strange tattoos, bearing a striking resemblance to the defunct scientific field of phrenology. The young man, name tag Ivan Wexler, was in the middle of telling a fretful anecdote. Apparently, the other carnies made fun of him for his head tattoos. When he told the bullies to stop, they locked him in the haunted freak house for an entire night, which had utterly terrified him. He lost sleep for weeks and wished he could forget the entire thing. F whispered something to the man and handed him a piece of paper with a symbol on it, which I didn't get a good look at. Perhaps I should have inquired, but I was in no mood to spend another second at this ridiculous fair. I took one last look down at my hand and was strangely relieved to find that the palm reader's ring was still blue. I shoved it in my pocket, collected F, and tried to put the whole experience out of my mind. Palm reading is ridiculous. I can't believe I dignified that from my time. The ancients made primitive charts like this to predict the future, and even this was more advanced than palmistry. I may want to study up on ancient forms of prediction. That'll show that witch. And with that, I'm going to take a break.